So, it's been a minute since we've had a good TV show that you can stand around the water cooler and talk about while you're blowing off work. Nowadays, shows like The Acolyte and Doctor Who are just so filled with ridiculous progressive preaching that there's no room for good storytelling. And when it comes to Game of Thrones, it may or may not have been this form of activism that destroyed it, but we can all agree that Dan and Dave, aka Dumb and Dumber, dropped the ball and produced probably one of television's worst letdowns ever made in that 8th season. Because of that, and the modern climate of the entertainment industry, not many people were overly excited for House of the Dragon Season 1. In fact, I think most of us thought that it was going to be the twin sister of the Rings of Power. Surprisingly though, it ended up recapturing that original love everyone had for Game of Thrones, and re-sparked an interest in the world of Westeros. The characters were interesting, and the writing seemed pretty solid, and the politics made sense, and didn't feel like they had been written by a 5-year-old, the way most of the shows coming out of Hollywood nowadays feel. But that came out over a year ago, and we're in 2024 now, and Season 2 of House of the Dragon has just dropped its first episode. So, does it live up to the hype? Does this season look and feel at least as good as the first season, based off of what we've seen in this first episode? Well guys, I'm going to give you my overall thoughts. But before we get into all that, if you are a fan of my content and would like to help support the channel, then please do hit the like and subscribe buttons, as well as the bell icon to be notified whenever my new videos drop. I cover TV shows, movies, anime, and gaming content, and I try to upload at least once a week. Subscribing is free, and all you have to do is make a YouTube account, which is also free. It really does go a long way in helping out the channel, and I do really appreciate all of the support. So with all of that out of the way, let's get into the video. So I'd like to start off by saying that I was pretty impressed with this episode, and I liked it quite a bit. It's not perfect, and there was one complaint that I had, but overall I feel it was pretty solid, and I'm being cautiously optimistic about the rest of the season. This season will have 8 episodes that are all about an hour long, and each will air every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now that we've covered the overall general thoughts on the episode, let's get into the content and spoilers, so you have been warned. For me, this episode overall did a good job reintroducing all of the main characters and giving us a good feel of where everyone's at and how things stand. This is just all going down around the same week or so after the last episode in Season 1, where Aemon Targaryen killed Lucerys? I'm having a hard time pronouncing this guy's name. It's Lucerys. I think that's how you do it. Yeah, there you go. Lucerys. Let's go with that. So, he killed him with that massive dragon, and he did it as an accident, of course, but it's not clear whether or not everyone else knows that. To give a few examples of the things I did enjoy in this episode, starting off would be the way that the whole episode started and seeing Winterfell again. It was all for nostalgia and member berries, but I've always loved Winterfell, and the Starks of course. I'm not sure if we're ever going to be going back there in this season, but it was nice to just see it at least once. Another thing, of course, I enjoy seeing, and this might sound just very basic, but of course it's the dragons themselves. From what I hear, there's going to be a lot of CGI dragons in this season, even more than in Season 1, and if the quality is just as kept up and as good as it's been, then I think we're all good to go, guys. There's not really any action that goes down in this first episode, but for me that wasn't a negative. Each person had their own individual goals and motivations, and they all seem to make sense. And I'm cool with only dialogue scenes if the writing's good and the characters are interesting. I haven't read the books myself, so I am approaching this the way most of you are as a normie, by the way. The only negative I have from this episode is the ending part. Now, to be honest with you, when I saw what they did at the end of the episode with the son of Aegon, I thought that it played out well, and even though the scene was brutal, it made sense. Afterward, I watched a review of someone who did actually read the books, and Then the more I thought about it, the more of it I kind of feel like was a bit of a misstep. So, in the books, from what I've heard, the big guy who's referred to as Blood and the rat catcher guy who's referred to as Cheese tell Helena that she has to choose one of the boys to live and have the other one die. And they're not asleep. Blood and Cheese are holding them hostage. And then the other little girl is in the room as well, so 3 children instead of 2. Helena tells Blood and Cheese to kill her instead, but they refuse, and so she chooses the younger son to die. Cheese tells the younger son that his mother wants him to die, but then Blood cuts off the older boy's head instead. Now, what we got was pretty messed up as it is, but in the books it's even worse, if all of that's accurate. And I mean worse when I say that, at least, as in the act itself being evil. But story-wise, knowing what I know now, I do wish that they would have put that in the show. In the actual show, one of the boys and the daughter is sleeping, and Blood can't tell them apart, and so Cheese tells Blood to just look for a cock on one of them. But then instead he has Helena tell him, and looking back and watching it a second time, that just doesn't really make any sense. I mean, he could have just literally checked between their legs to see which one was a boy. So it did end up being kind of stupid. You just don't really think about it at the time because it was so brutal. I don't really know why they didn't put it in the show, because this is Game of Thrones. I mean, yeah, it's House of the Dragon, but it's Game of Thrones, and I mean, just think about the Red Wedding. They are willing to take crazy risks, and so I'm not sure why they deviated from that, but either way, that was really my only complaint, and I still think overall it was a pretty good episode. One thing's for sure is that there's no stopping the war now, though. Since I'm really a normie when it comes to this lore on the stuff, and I haven't really read the books, I think I'm going to keep these reviews a bit brief and short. You know, short and sweet. Plus, I want to make sure that I get out a video every single week, so I'll just be giving my overall kind of general thoughts on every episode and telling you a few things that I liked and things that I thought worked, as well as things that maybe could have been better. But for the next 7 weeks, for the remaining episodes, I will be making reviews. And if you did like this video, then please do remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons in order to help out the channel. I think that's going to be it for me today, guys. Like I said, short and sweet, just my overall thoughts. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a great freaking day.